Some Answered Questions, Chapter 9, Part 2, Baha'u'llah. When Baha'u'llah came to this prison in the Holy Land, the wise men realized that the glad tidings which God gave through the tongue of the prophets 2,000 or 3,000 years before were again manifested, and that God was faithful to his promise. For to some of the prophets he had revealed and given the good news that the Lord of hosts should be manifested in the Holy Land. All these promises were fulfilled, and it is difficult to understand how Baha'u'llah could have been obliged to leave Persia and to pitch his tent in the Holy Land, but for the persecution of his enemies, his banishment and exile. His enemies intended that his imprisonment should completely destroy and annihilate the blessed cause. But this prison was in reality of the greatest assistance and became the means of its development. The divine renown of Baha'u'llah reached the east and the west, and the rays of the Sun of Truth illumined all the world. Praise be to God! Though he was a prisoner, his tent was raised on Mount Carmel, and he moved abroad with the greatest majesty. Every person, friend or stranger, who came into his presence used to say, "This is a prince, not a captive." Upon his arrival in the prison in Adrianople, he addressed an epistle to Napoleon III, which he sent through the French ambassador. The gist of it was, "Ask what is our crime, and why we are confined in this prison and this dungeon." Napoleon made no reply. Then a second epistle was issued, which is contained in the Surah Haykal. The epitome of it is, "O Napoleon, as thou hast not listened to my proclamation, and as thou hast not answered it, thy dominion will before long be taken away from thee, and thou wilt be utterly destroyed." This epistle was sent to Napoleon by post, through the care of César Ketafakau, the son of the French consul in Syria, as was known to all the companions of his exile. The text of this warning reached the whole of Persia, for it was at that time that the Kitab-i-Hakal was spread in Persia, and this epistle was among the contents of this book. This happened in AD 1869, and as this Surah Haykal was circulated in Persia and India, and was in the hands of all believers, they were waiting to see what would come to pass. Not long after, in AD 1870, the war between Germany and France broke out, and though no one at that time expected the victory of Germany, Napoleon was defeated and dishonored. He surrendered to his enemies, and his glory was changed into deep abasement. Tablets were also sent to other kings, and among them was the letter to His Majesty Nasir-i-Din Shah. In that epistle, Baha'u'llah said, "Have me summoned, gather the ulama, and ask for proofs and arguments, so that the truth and falsehood may become known." His Majesty Nasir-i-Din Shah sent the blessed epistle to the ulama and proposed to them that they should undertake this mission, but they dared not do so. Then he asked 7 of the most celebrated among them to write an answer to the challenge. After some time they returned the blessed letter, saying, This man is the opposer of religion and the enemy of the Shah. His Majesty, the Shah of Persia, was much vexed and said, "This is a question for proofs and arguments, and of truth or falsehood. What has it to do with enmity to the government? Alas, how much we respected these ulama, and cannot even reply to this epistle." Briefly, all that was recorded in the tablets to the kings is being fulfilled. If from the year AD 1870 we compare the events that have occurred, we will find everything that has happened has appeared as predicted. Only a few remain, which will afterward become manifested. So also foreign peoples and other sects who are not believers attributed many wonderful things to Baha'u'llah. Some believed that he was a saint, and some even wrote treatises about him. One of them, Sayyid Dawoodi, a Sunnite servant of Baha'u'llah, wrote a short treatise in which he related certain supernatural acts of Baha'u'llah. Even now, in all parts of the East, there are some people who, though they do not believe in his manifestation, nevertheless believe him to be a saint and relate miracles attributed to him. To sum up, both his antagonists and his partisans, as well as all those who were received in the sacred spot, acknowledged and bore witness to the greatness of Baha'u'llah. Though they did not believe in him, still they acknowledged his grandeur. And as soon as they entered the sacred spot, the presence of Baha'u'llah produced such an effect on most of them that they could not utter a word. How many times it happened that one of his most bitter enemies would resolve within himself, "I will say such and such things when I reach his presence, and I will dispute and argue thus with him." But when he entered the holy presence, he would become amazed and confounded and remain speechless. Baha'u'llah had never studied Arabic. He had not had a tutor or teacher, nor had he entered a school. Nevertheless, the eloquence and elegance of his blessed expositions in Arabic, as well as his Arabic writings, caused astonishment and stupefaction to the most accomplished Arabic scholars, and all recognized and declared that he was uncomparable and unequaled. If we carefully examine the text of the Torah, we see that the divine manifestation never said to those who denied him, "Whatever miracle you desire, I am ready to perform, and I will submit to whatever test you propose." But in the epistle to the Shah, Baha'u'llah said clearly, "Gather the ulama and summon me, and the evidences and proofs may be established." For 50 years, Baha'u'llah faced his enemies like a mountain. All wished to annihilate him and sought his destruction. 1,000 times they planned to crucify and destroy him, and during these 50 years he was in constant danger. In this day, Persia is in such a state of decadence and ruin that all intelligent men, whether Persian or foreigners, who realize the true state of affairs, recognize that its progress, its civilization, and its reconstruction depend upon the promulgation of the teachings and the development of the principles of this great personage. Christ, in his blessed day, in reality only educated 11 men. The greatest of them was Peter, who, nevertheless, when he was tested, thrice denied Christ. In spite of this, the cause of Christ subsequently permeated the world. At the present day, Baha'u'llah has educated thousands of souls who, while under the menace of the sword, raised to the highest heaven the cry of "Ya Baha'u'llah Pa," and in the fire of tests Their faces became illuminated like gold. Then reflect what will take place in the future. Finally, we must be just and acknowledge what an educator this glorious being was. What marvelous signs were manifested by him, and what power and might have been realized in the world through him.